What is up, my Jets family? I appreciate you guys being here on your Monday afternoons. Technically, it's the evening. Thank you for tuning in. You got me, Harrison Glazer. Like always, I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for tuning in to the Take Flight Spit and Fire podcast. Excited to be with you guys tonight. So, the topic of conversation is Marcus Maye. That's the man that we're going to be talking about. So what is going on with Marcus Maye? Now, as we know, Marcus Maye was one of the best players, if not the best player, on the Jets defense last year. He was our defensive, candidate of the year. He was our best player, we felt, and we want to extend him. I mean, a lot of Jet fans do. I think most Jet fans do, but it honestly comes down to the money. So let's dive into this. Let's look at this situation because this has been ongoing for a little while now. So let's take a look at this. See a bunch of people coming in. Again, appreciate you guys. Thank you for being here again, like always, to the Take Flight Spit and Fire podcast. Let's get into it. So the Jets have until July 15th to extend or give Marcus Maye a bigger contract. So to actually come to terms, they have until July 15th. Now, as you guys know, he was tagged. They put the tag on Marcus Maye. So he's locked down for this year. You have him for this year. That's set. Marcus Maye will be there. He's going to be making $10.6 million. So right off the bat, that tells you that if if he was only going to be getting a 1-year deal, that you look at the money. Obviously, he wanted more than that. Obviously, he was looking for more, which could be understandable. If we look actually at the highest paid safeties in the NFL right now, we got Cardinals safety Budda Baker making $14.75 million a year, and Bears safety Eddie Jackson making $14.6 million a year. And those are the highest paid safeties. So whether we like it or not, we have to accept that, safety is not a premium position anymore. The NFL changes, the NFL adapts. You remember we talked about it here. You guys remember back a couple of podcasts ago, we talked about the evolution of the quarterback position before, Johnny Unitas position didn't exist. How when I was a kid, the running back was the big thing. Now it's not the big thing anymore. Like what our current team based on the Shanahan system, the Niners system, what LaFleur is going to implement, you want a committee. I love that we signed Michael Carter. You guys know how I feel about him. Him, Ty Johnson, Josh Adams, Tevin Coleman, even LaMichael Perrine. You got a committee back there of a bunch of guys that can prove themselves. So that's where we're kind of moving right now. And whether we like it or not, Jamal Adams had this. He had to, swallow that humble pie. He had to realize that safety isn't as much a premium position as well, too, when the Jets were kind of in negotiations. So it's an interesting situation, again, where we are right now. So as it is said, the team has, like I was saying before, just to clarify that, because it's important, they have until July 15th. The Jets and Marcus Maye's camp have until July 15th to figure something out, to come to a long-term deal, to keep him on the Jets beyond just next season. Because, again, he was tagged. So because he's tagged, he'll be there next year. He's going to be there, no doubt. He's going to be making $10.6 million, which got compared it to, the top safeties, what those guys are making. So as of camp right now, Robert Saleh, he's gangbusters, and the players are gravitating toward him just like we wanted. He's got the energy just like we wanted. It looks great. We haven't seen, any actual production yet, but it's rookie minicamp. Things are starting, and it looks good. So far, according to Robert Saleh, he said that he's had good conversations and good discussions with Marcus Maye's agents and Marcus Maye's camp. And that's great. I think that's awesome. But there is a problem with that. Robert Saleh isn't the one that makes the contract decision. That's Joe Douglas. And Joe Douglas, as we know, is I feel, as you guys know, I feel like he's a great GM. I felt like he was a great GM for a long time, going back a while now. And we've seen that with the Jamal Adams trade, with other negotiations he's done. I love him for so many different aspects, but just on that, trade and contract aspect, it always seems like Joe Douglas walks out the winner on like every single one. Like you look at the metric and he just got a little bit sweeter and he made it happen. So Joe's not going to get taken advantage of. And So I think to really understand the situation as we all remember it, see a bunch of you guys coming in, appreciate you guys. Let's rewind a little bit. Let's go back a little bit to the beginning of March. So in the beginning of March, that's when Douglas and Marcus Maye, before free agency began, the camps had said they were in conversations and they were talking. And I remember, because it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know if you guys remember. I brought it up on Twitter. Marcus Maye's agent, Eric Burkhart. So Eric Burkhart is Marcus Maye's agent. And from what we had heard up to this point, this is March 2nd, we were under the impression that negotiations were ongoing. Both sides were trying to figure it out. He sent a message. Apparently, it was attached to, it wasn't a Jets tweet from the Jets, but it was from Field Yates and it was about the Jets. So, and it was a quote of Rich Cimini. So you would think, it did take off. You would think, Jet fans would see it, especially. He says it wasn't terrible. It wasn't nasty, but basically says you refuse to take care of your best player, captain, team voted MVP in his prime, all pro votes, played out his whole rookie deal, changed his positions after he got rid of last year's all pro. It's just bitter. You know what I mean? Like, it's not nasty. It's not negative. It was just bitter. Like, you don't expect that. Like, that sends a message to everybody. Shout out to man. He said Samini blocked him. I mean, to each his own. Everyone does their own thing. So I guess Samini blocked him. So he's got you out of there. But Field Yates is the one who actually tweeted it. And it was his agent that commented on the tweet. And as we know, we've talked so much with Jamal Adams, about the immaturity and, the immaturity and, the things that are being said. You don't expect that from an agent. You don't expect this guy to, come out and do that, because it sends that rift, it sends that divide, which is just crazy to me. So it sends that bad message, which is not what you want at all. So that was a big issue. Jenny makes a good point. Shout out to Jenny. She says, at least Maye didn't feed into it. That's true. That's true. At least Maye didn't feed into it. I mean, we talk about that. That was the big thing with Jamal Adams. Acting immature, seeking his own trade, like literally going out to seek his own freaking trade with the Cowboys, which is insanity. Like, who does that? And the outward spokenness, the nastiness. I remember, when we gotten rid of him, I commented on it. I posted it too, because he had that whole thing where he went on that depression rant, and he basically insinuated that he was fine before he got to the Jets. And then all of a sudden, he now has these depression problems. But anyone who has depression, I know people personally in my life that suffer from it. That's not how it works. It is an onset. There's no such thing as onset. So it upset me. It upset a lot of people. Thankfully, like Jenny says, Maye isn't like that. So Maye's not dumb. He's not coming out. He's not saying the wrong thing. But the agent thing, like, you don't expect that. So, but the agent doing that back on, and that was on March 2nd, as you guys know, the next day, Joe Douglas comes out and clarifies it and says, that negotiations are still ongoing, that we're still communicating, we're still trying to figure this out. And basically that negotiations are ongoing and conversations have been productive, is basically what he says. So it's an interesting situation, because, again, we would have thought this would have been handled already, because he was our best player last year. He was the best player on the team. So a lot of people scratch their head and wonder, why is he still not signed? Like, why is there still an uncertainty there? Again, the big clarification I want to make sure everyone understands, which is important, he is on the tag. So no matter what, he's playing next year. No matter what, in 2021, Marcus Maye will be on the Jets. It's after that. So like we said, they have till July 15th to figure this out, to make this work. Here's what I think it comes down to, if you ask me. So I mentioned the negotiation part, and I think the Burkhart thing could have caused a rift, and we need to acknowledge that for a second, because the truth of it could be, look at it from Joe Douglas. Yeah, Matthias talks about it too, man. All these guys just crapping on the Jets. All these guys just nastiness about the Jets. But by his agent doing that, it makes you wonder, with Joe Douglas, maybe he doesn't want that. Maybe, like, that could actually be something that possibly sours him on it. And it may not even be anything of Maye's fault because, just having that kind of issue, having that kind of outspokenness, that could be something, that could possibly rub him the wrong way. I mean, that's even just a possibility. So when it comes down to the actual negotiation, when it comes down to figuring out what's going to happen here, I had said it, back in the past when the negotiations were first going on, back in, during free agency, and people wondered why it hadn't been signed yet. I speculated that even though a lot of people thought it had to do with money, I think it has to do with duration. Because Marcus Maye, like we said, no argument, is and was one of the best safeties last year. He was one of the better safeties in the NFL, the best player on our team. The dude deserves to be paid. And I mentioned, how Robert Saleh feels about the situation. Again, it's different than how Joe Douglas feels. So, I take my hat and put my head coaching hat on for a second, and I make myself Robert Saleh. I'm all in for these guys. These guys are my players, They're going to die for me. I'm going to die for them. Leave it all on the field, run through a freaking brick wall, running out on the field to scream at shit when people disrespect my players. Like, that's what Robert Saleh brings to the table. And I love it because, again, he's the coach and he's not the one making the decision. His answer when they asked him about it, Robert Saleh said, I think these kids have earned the right to ask for whatever they can, especially when they do things the right way like he has. That's a great answer because he's basically saying, they deserve to get paid if they pay at a quality level. Excuse me, my bad, guys. I forgot to put my phone on silent. There we go. We're all good now. I'm going to pay somebody if it's my option, which unfortunately it isn't. But if it is his option, he's saying that I'm going to pay players that are quality because that's what you have to do. You have to pay players that are quality. And he's done it the right way. Like we said, he's not outspoken. He's not Jamal Adams, this situation. We know how much of a nightmare that was. And again, you guys just heard me talk about that. Marcus Maye is not that, which is great. So I pointed out the issue with the agent. I just fear, with Joe Douglas being a no BS guy. That's the thing. He's made that clear. We saw that with Adams. We saw that with every situation. He's a no BS guy. Bullshit is not going to stand in a Joe Douglas room. That's not happening. So you wonder, if the way that situation is going has prolonged it the way it has and caused that problem. It's possible. It's definitely possible. But like we mentioned before, Maye is an all-star. Maye is one of the best safeties in the NFL, was last year, and the best player on the Jets. He deserves to be paid. But here's the thing. So again, I have my Robert Saleh hat on, read you the quote, psyched, I want my guys to get paid. But now if I take my Robert Saleh hat off and I put my Joe Douglas hat on, I have to think what's best for this team, what's best for the Jets and their success financially as well. So when we look at Marcus Maye, there's a big thing we have to take into consideration. And I pointed this out when negotiations first started. He was not one of the younger guys when he was drafted. He was 25, I believe, when he was drafted. So now Marcus Maye is 28 years old going into this current season. And if they can't come to an arrangement and they have to wait till next year, Marcus Maye will be 29 years old. That's not young in NFL terms. I'm not saying he's going to fall off the hill. Don't get that. And I'm not saying, he probably will have, definitely, I think he'll have a good, 3 or 4 good years left. Probably play into, 32, 33, maybe even 34. But Joe Douglas is probably looking at it as, I'll pay this guy, but I think the duration is the issue. That's what I honestly think it is. I think Marcus Maye is trying to get potentially a 4-year contract. And Douglas is hoping for probably at most a 3-year and maybe even a 2-year, maybe even a 2, but still paying the guy. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if when we do pay Maye, when it's all said and done. Again, I mentioned you guys at the beginning of the podcast, the 2 highest paid NFL safeties. We have Cardinals safety Budda Baker, who makes $14.75 million, and Bears safety Eddie Jackson, who makes $14.6. So people speculated that Maye could be making between like 11 and 12. The tag is for 10.6. So one thing we know for sure is he wanted more than 10.6, right? That's like the one thing we know 100%. Because if he only wanted 10.6, he wouldn't have taken the tag. He would have taken a long-term deal. So that's the only definitive thing we know. We know that he wants more than that. I think it's probably going to be somewhere in the 11 and change to 12 and change, give or take. But again, I think it's the duration, because if you're paying a guy for 4 years, that 12-year deal is now a $48 million deal, as opposed to in 2 or 3 years, it's 24 or 36. That's a big difference. So that's what I really think the issue is here, where the divide is. It's not on the money, because Douglas, we've seen it. And I've said it before with getting Mims later on, his whole draft. Douglas understands value. He knows what Marcus Maye is. So I honestly don't think the money is the issue. So Matthias points out, I think we'll pay Maye, but not long term. So here's where the situation gets interesting. And again, there's so many facets to the way you can handle this. They could decide on a really expensive, like really expensive 2-year deal. And that was something I was going to float as well. If he really wants a long-term deal, the way you're going to get him on a short deal is you're going to have to pay his ass. You're going to have to pay his ass and give him a good amount of guaranteed money. So if the Jets really only want to keep him around short term, but want to lock him down, you may not agree with it, but a good option may be something like, well, not maybe not, a good option depending, but to do that, you probably need 2 years, maybe about 28 million, and probably about 18 million, 20 of it guaranteed, like something like that, like a bigger contract with a lot of guaranteed money. That's probably the way you're going to get it done if you're thinking, like, again, I got my GM hat on and I don't want to pay him for too many years and lock myself in for the cap, and screw my cap down the road. So that's an interesting way to handle it. But again, I think that's the biggest factor. I think that's what, and we're blinded by it because we know how good Maye is. And Marcus Maye is really good. So just for fun, so Matthias points out, Matthias throws it out, 30 million for 3 years. It's not going to be enough, because you have to remember he's getting the tag this year of 10.6. So if he was going to take a $10 million deal for, a season, he would have done that. So I'm thinking it's got to be, in my opinion, I'm thinking he wants 4 years, or with a 3-year deal, he wants something like 14 a year, give or take, like something bigger to take the lower deal. I would do that with a 2-year. Again, it sounds like a lot of money, but when you talk about a guy of Marcus Maye's caliber, and that's the point, man. You say you don't want to tie up the money. I completely agree, and that's what I was pointing out before. Marcus Maye doesn't like it. Jamal Adams didn't like it. He made a freaking big stink about it. But safety is not a premium position anymore. It just isn't. It's the way the NFL's evolved. You can't hate it. You just got to be part of it. You got to go with the groove. Either you're Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas, and you're going in with the groove, and you're adjusting as it goes, or you're Adam Gase, and you're staying put, and you just fall off and die. That's your options. You can either stay put or evolve. We saw that again. We pointed out with the quarterback position, the running back position. I pointed out, when I was a kid, how the running back was the position. That was the guy. It's a pass-heavy league now. Safety's not in anymore. It's just not. We said before, the highest paid safety makes 14 point something million. That's not an insane amount of money by NFL standards. I mean, compare that to like wide receivers, and that's that's like probably what like a B wide receiver would make, honestly. Like, that's the kind of money you might throw at a guy, that is a great wide receiver too, potentially. So it's just not a premium position anymore. So that's why I personally think the age is the biggest factor, because Joe Douglas isn't stupid. We've said it. I've said it many times. You saw it with this last draft. I think Joe Douglas killed it with all the picks, the versatility of the safeties to play linebacker, to play slot corner. You guys saw the speed I pointed out in slot corner today. I mean, think about this for a second. As of right now, we have 3 slot cornerbacks on our team. 3. And our 3 slot cornerbacks have a 40 time of 4.29, 4.3, and 4.34. That's just ridiculous speed. Joe Douglas has proven, and he knows how to draft, and he's got a type, man. He likes those slot guys to be unbelievably fast. I mean, look at those numbers. 4.29, 4.3, 4.34. Those are the 3 guys we have in the slot right now. He wants guys that can move. But what also is interesting, there's similar traits to them. All three of them, Javelin Guidry, Brandon Eccles, and Michael Carter II. All three of them are very, very physical coverage guys for their smaller size. And all three of them also thrive in man coverage, like really thrive in man coverage. So again, I pointed that out before. We're going to, wait a minute, Harrison, what are you talking about? We're running a zone. We're going to be running it all. We got to run and adapt. Joe, like Matthias says, Joe D is so smart. He knows what he's doing. The way I thought about it, remember when the draft happened, we took the safety Sherwood. Remember, I was like, okay, well, I didn't dive deep into safeties. Remember, I told you guys that I'm not as good as Joe. Like, I'm decent, I think. I'm okay at my draft eval. I dig into a lot of guys, but I'm not Joe. Clearly, I'm not Joe because I didn't dig into the safeties. I dug into the linebackers. Remember, I told you about guys like Charles Snowden, Surratt, the guys I really like. Douglas finds these safeties. And when you take them, as you guys have seen, I've shown it on Twitter consistently, when you take these guys like Nasruddin, Sherwood, and you put them at linebacker, it's exciting. It's just exciting. The sideline to sideline ability of these guys. What you don't realize is when you take them and put them at linebacker, you need to reevaluate them. What they were evaluated at before is not the same. For example, Jamie and Sherwood, they said, oh, you're slow. You run a 4.75 40. Well, 4.75 40 is damn good for a linebacker. I'll take a 4.75 40. I'm cool with that. I mean, it's not the fastest, but it ain't slow by any means. But they're also agile and quick. Him and Nasruddin are going to be sideline to sideline, making every play, up at the line of scrimmage, playing the box, hitting the quarterback, getting the running back, big hitting all the time, dropping back in coverage, and playing well in coverage. Again, if we look at them as safeties, they're average coverage guys. When we look at them as linebackers, they become pretty awesome coverage guys. Ability in zone to read the quarterback, to make decisions, to jump on the ball. It's great. It's safety instinct at a linebacker position. Love it. And I mentioned those slot guys. Speed all day. Speed like you can't even imagine. So, and like Matthias says, he likes that, these guys can do more than one thing. It's important. Yeah. And you love that. You got to love Elijah Moore, man. Elijah Moore is the literal definition of the Swiss Army knife. He's the guy when a coach thinks of a gadget, he thinks of Elijah Moore and maybe Anthony Schwartz. But that's the guys you think about when you think of a gadget. Elijah Moore can do everything. I've shown video of him lining up as a running back, running through the tackles even, excellent agility, great hands, one of the best receivers. You guys have seen. If you haven't seen, please check Twitter. I've shown all the stats. Elijah Moore was the best slot cornerback in all of college football, blew everybody away, set records like crazy at Ole Miss. He was the best slot wide receiver in that draft, arguably up there in talent with guys like Chase. You could argue that Moore is up there at that level, and we got him with the 34th pick. Man, Joe Douglas is the man. Joe Douglas is the man. But that's coming back to Maye. That's what it comes down to. We look at it from Robert Saleh's perspective. And again, you put that head coach hat on. You put the head coach hat on of Robert Saleh. You run through a wall for these guys, man. Like I said, I love what Saleh said. Saleh's quote was great. I'll give it to you guys again. He said, I think these kids have earned the right to ask for whatever they can, especially when they do the right things like he has. That's the point. Maye has been a class act, role model, done what he's needed to do. His agent's made a stink, like we pointed out. His agent's been a little bit of an issue, but he hasn't. He hasn't been an issue. So getting that long-term deal, we talked about it. I think it's really going to come down to that time. That's honestly what I think it comes down to. I don't think Joe's stupid. Joe's not like, he's not Mike McCagnon. He's not saying Maye doesn't deserve the money. He knows what Maye is. Maye deserves the money. It's going to come down to what's guaranteed in the years of the contract. That's what I think it is. Now, here's the other situation, though. We'll turn it a little bit. Again, Joe Douglas being such an excellent drafter. We saw it this draft. I said after that first draft, man, we got a guy that can draft. After being a talent guy myself and watching nothing but all of our GMs prior, Itzik make me cry, McCagnon make me scream, just piss me off with the guy I didn't want. When the guy I want is, I don't want to get angry. But that's how it would go. And Joe Douglas, that first draft, I'm like, we got him. We got a guy that understands talent. And then he killed it even more this second draft. Killed it, guys. Absolutely killed it. But again, he's smart. See, he's a good drafter. He knows how to draft players. He's gotten safeties. So I don't want Marcus Maye to go anywhere. I want to throw that out. This is just an option. So just throwing it out. I do not want Marcus Maye to go anywhere. I don't. I'd like him to get signed. But again, it comes down to how much of, how much guaranteed money, how much time away Joe Douglas could be looking at it. At safety right now, which again is not a premium position. It just isn't anymore. The corner is a premium position, which I feel like we got a stud in Hall. Remember I told you guys, in a bad system, an Adam Gase system with Greg Williams calling that freaking defense, Hall shined. Hall shined in a horrible system, almost looking like a CB1. So I can't even wait to see what he can do in Saleh's system. And you guys have seen, I've been going nothing but Jason Pinnock. You guys have seen what I've shown you on Pinnock. And I'll come back to him in a second. But corner is the position. That's the position now, not safety. Big money doesn't go to the safeties anymore. It just doesn't. We said before, Budda Baker isn't even making $15 million, and he's the highest paid safety right now. So Joe Douglas has gotten safeties. We have, let's go through the list, not counting Maye, not even counting him. We have LaMarcus Joyner, who, remember, as we talked about, struggled as a slot cornerback, struggled in every other position in the box, but as a safety, specifically being graded over his whole career as a free safety. The dude was elite. The dude was in the 90th percentile of safeties when he played safety. PFF grades of 90.1. He was awesome as a safety. And now that we actually have corners, remember, corner was an issue. We got 3 in the draft. We got 2 slot guys and 1 outside guy. So we have corners now. So Joyner can play just safety. We also have Ashton Davis. Remember, Douglas drafted Ashton Davis because he believes in him, and I don't blame him. I said it that last draft too. It didn't make sense if we were keeping Maye and Adams, but if we were trading one of them, I thought it was a great pick. Davis was one of the top safeties on everybody's board. He's a big hitter, strong guy, okay in coverage, can work on his coverage skills, but he's a big hitter, and he's fast as hell. You guys remember this track stuff? This dude is a track star. This guy was basically, he wasn't Olympic, but he was like almost at the level of like getting to that like Olympic level of hurdling. This dude was fast. And as we saw with Ashton Davis last year, he murdered Cam Newton. Remember? He blasted Cam Newton, who's a big quarterback, big Cam Newton. Ashton Davis blasted him, took him out of the game. So don't sleep on Davis. We just mentioned LaMarcus Joyner. And think about the guys we just drafted. We talked about versatility. We talked about hybrid ability. I think Nassourdine and Sherwood are going to be playing linebacker, but they can play safety. You can move them around. That's the beauty of it. You can use them as an interior coverage guy who, call him interior coverage linebacker. Call him interior coverage safety. You know what? The name doesn't matter. That's the point. It doesn't matter what you call him. He can do that kind of position. So when you have a guy like Nassourdine, Sherwood drafted, Michael Carter played safety, even Eccles has that ability. It's interesting. I don't want it to happen, but Douglas could turn around and, again, with Burkhart, the situation there, not being able to get a deal done, he could feel that, he's good with what he has with LaMarcus Joyner, with Ashton Davis, with those other guys that have the ability to plug in potentially. But I think it can get done. I think a deal with Marcus Maye can get done for all the reasons I've said. And again, I think it comes down to being that time issue, duration issue, and not the money issue. It's not as much the money. Douglas is going to pay the guy if he's a great player, which he is. It's that duration of time. Because again, when this season starts, Marcus Maye is going to be 28 years old. And when next season begins, if he plays out the tag, let's say that's another thing. Maye could play out the tag, and then we could try to negotiate at the end of the year. That's another thing too. July 15th is just the window to make the tag go away like magic. To come up with a contract and be like, there was no tag. We don't know what you're talking about. It wasn't here. But he could still play on the tag, and then they could try to re-sign him next year. But at that point, he'll be 29 years old. So I can imagine Douglas wouldn't want any more than 3 years max in that situation. So it's interesting how that can play out. I think it's all the factors we talked about. But Uh, that's what all I wanted to say with the Marcus Maye situation. I noticed some of you guys came in a little bit later. If you missed it, I went into a lot more in the beginning of the episode. Now I'd love to take your guys' questions. Like always, talk about whatever you guys want to. We could talk about different positions on the team. We could talk about how we stand right now with certain draft picks. I have stats on all the draft picks. So if there's one guy you want me to talk about, tell me. I can make you feel good about him. That's a challenge if you want. Pick a draft pick. I'll make you feel good about him. I'll make you feel like Joe got the guy with that pick. I got you. So we got that. Positional analysis. You guys remember last episode, I talked about all the different positions we have on the team, how set we are. Like Matthias says, shout out. Again, I always appreciate you guys commenting. And again, now's the time. Bring in the questions. Bring in anything you want me to talk about. He points out that he loves this defensive scheme. It's so versatile. And that's the point, man. That's what I love about it. It was exactly when Robert Saleh, remember I was telling you guys, he gave everybody during the draft, him and Joe, they said something. They were like, I love your drive. I love your motivation. I love this. I love that. But I have it right here. When he got to Michael Carter, Robert Saleh was like, hold on, let me get out my list. And I want to go through the list for a second. So when he's got Michael Carter II, the safety from Duke, on the phone, Robert Saleh says to him, we've got a plan for you in this D. Your combination of speed, athleticism, man coverage ability, instincts, smarts, all works in what we do. That got me immediately because I'm like, okay, everyone else we're happy to have you, man. I'm psyched. Let's go. Let's do it. He got a list. He was like, okay, I like this. I like that. And the man coverage, that was an interesting situation because you look at Javelin Guidry, like I pointed out, he was excellent in man coverage last year. Could be good in zone, but he was really good in man. He praised Michael Carter for the same thing, and the same thing with Brandon Echols. Brandon Echols, you take all three of these guys. Smaller corners that have elite speed. Remember, 4.29, 4.3, 4.34. That's the speed of our three slot guys. Our slowest slot cornerback out of three people runs a 4.3, 4.40. Just let that sink in for a second because that's crazy. That's speed on top of speed. That's three guys that are like, I'm running with Tyreek Hill. Those are three guys at the end of training camp. I want to see a race. I just want to see dust. Just just Speedy Gonzalez, just gone. I love it, man. John comes in. John, we were talking all about Marcus Maye, my man. Check it out. Like I always say to you guys, I appreciate you guys being here. You can go back into the podcast when we're done. Once we're done being live, go back, check at the beginning. We talked all about Marcus Maye, his contract, why it's taken so long, the issues going on with it, how I personally feel they can fix it. I have my opinions. I threw them out there. Maybe they're good. Maybe they're bullshit. We'll find out. But that's what I was thinking. So that was my opinion when we talked about that situation. But these picks, man, Douglas nailed it. So I love it. Like Matthias said, how versatile this defense is. The more I think about Nasruddin and the more I think about Sherwood, and the more I get pumped because just the ability these two guys are going to have. Unbelievable. When you look at them as linebackers, just as linebackers, their speed is top-notch. Literally sideline to sideline, these two guys are going to be. They're going to be excellent in coverage, covering tight ends. They're going to break up the line. When you move them to the line, remember I pointed out last week, isn't it just a box safety? When you move a linebacker to the line of scrimmage, he's a box safety. And these two guys play the box like champs. They blast people up. They murder people day and night. So that is exciting. Talked about Michael Carter, safety, with a 4.340. Him, Guidry, Echols, slot options. But guys, you remember last week I told you about Jason Pinnock. I've been excited about all these picks. Obviously, Zach Wilson. Obviously, Vera Tucker. Love those picks. But the more I think about it, man, I start to fall in love with the Pinnock pick. And if you guys haven't seen it, please check out my pinned tweet. I showed that Jason Pinnock in college football was as good, basically, as J.C. Horn and Derek Stingley Jr. This guy, NFL Network, was bragging about how J.C. Horn put up a 33% completion rating against last season. Well, that's great. But guess who had a lower one? Guess who had 3% lower than J.C. Horn? Jason Pinnock. Jason Pinnock, I could bring it up right now. I can show you guys. I think I brought it up the other day, but just to remind you guys, it's unbelievable. When you look at Derek Stingley, Jason Pinnock has the second lowest completion percentage allowed of all outside cornerbacks since 2019. The only one he's under is Derek Stingley Jr., and he's only 1% lower than him. I'm comparing a fifth-round pick that we got to J.C. Horn and Derek Stingley Jr. J.C. Horn, who went 8th overall, who you guys know how much I loved him, and Stingley Jr., who anybody who tells you that Derek Stingley Jr. isn't the best corner prospect in next year's draft, you shouldn't listen to what they're saying. Don't listen, because they don't know what they're talking about. But this guy was playing at their level, man. He had better completion percentages against than J.C. Horn and Stingley Jr. Now, the biggest argument people bring up is competition. They go, oh, competition. The SEC competition is bigger. Well, not as much, guys. I pointed this out too. As you guys know, and I've said it before, I'm a big ACC fan. I'm a big ACC guy. I love my ACC teams, love watching the ACC. They've come on in football. They really have. And they've come on to the point where I don't know if you guys saw this. I put it out. I looked at Joe Douglas's draft picks, and all of a sudden I noticed a trend. I was like, wait a minute. So I started to calculate it up. Did you know of Joe Douglas's 10 draft picks, if we take out Zach Wilson and AVT, his 8 other picks come from the SEC and the ACC. That's it. That's it. That is it. 8 of Joe Douglas's 10 picks, all those positional guys, are either from SEC schools or ACC schools. And I tell you all the things I love about Joe Douglas. That's just it with me, man. I love that ACC. I love the football there. There are good receivers, very talented receivers in the ACC. But more importantly, anybody who's a Pitt fan will tell you that in Pitt's defense, their outside cornerbacks are on an island. That's a fact. Pitt outside cornerbacks have no help. They either sink or they swim on the island. And you saw with those stats, Jason Pinnock swam, and he swam with guys like J.C. Horn and Derek Stingley Jr. And again, we got him in the 5th round. We got him 175 overall. So talk about Pitt corners playing on an island. You guys know who we think of when we think of Jet guys playing on an island. We think of Darrelle Revis. And as you guys remember, Darrelle played for Pitt. Darrelle was a Pitt corner. Pitt corners, ask anybody who's a Pitt fan, I'm telling you. Feel free to ask anyone who's an actual, watches the team, legit diehard Pitt fan. They will tell you that their outside corners are on an island. They sink or swim on their own 90% of the time, 90-something plus percent of the time. They have absolutely no help. And Pinnock performed and then some. So Bryce Hall, we got last year in the 5th round. Man, if Joe Douglas, and I think he did, I think Joe Douglas got us our 2 shutdown outside corners in 5th rounds. This man got our 2 starting, in my opinion, are going to be the starting outside shutdown corners in Bryce Hall and Jason Pinnock in the 5th round of last year and the 5th round of this year. I mean, the man can draft. The man can draft. And John points out, franchise turning draft, 100% agree. Everyone fits perfectly. And against the beauty of it, like when he took Sherwood, I was joking with you guys. When he first took Sherwood, I was like, remember, Joe's better than me. I admit I didn't dig I didn't dig deep into the safeties. I didn't. I just didn't. I didn't view safety as a big need of ours. I wasn't as smart as Joe Douglas. I didn't anticipate that. I knew who Hamza Nasruddin was. And you guys remember I told you I was a huge fan of Hamza Nasruddin. Right when we took Sherwood, and I was like, oh, he's playing linebacker. Kind of wanted Hamza. Like, that was my thought process. I was like, well, I don't mind the pick. I like it, but I kind of wanted Nasruddin. And then we got Nasruddin, and I was like, let's go, baby. Let's go. When you look at these guys, they are big hitters. Big hitters. Just what you want. They're going to plug in just like when we thought what we were getting in Keanu Neal. Just like what we thought we were going to get in Keanu Neal. we're going to be getting in Jamie and Sherwood and Hamza Nasruddin. And they're going to be a fantastic duo between the two of them. I am really excited. But John brings up the UDFA class and the UDFAs. My two personal favorites, I've mentioned them to you guys, are Hamilcar Rashed Jr. and Kenny Yabo. Now, Hamilcar Rashed Jr. is an edge rusher. And you guys remember last year, Joe found his edge rusher in undrafted as well. And that was my guy. Remember, my guy was Bryce Huff. I loved Bryce Huff. Feel free. I think the kids now, they say, check my receipts. That's the thing, right? Feel free to check my receipts. Bryce follows me, and we've spoken a little bit in the past because I followed him back when he was with Memphis, back when he played at the bowl games. I was like, this kid's amazing. I love his talent. I don't understand why people are sleeping on him. He's going to go in the later rounds. I want him. I still can't figure out how Bryce Huff wasn't drafted. It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't get it. I honestly don't get it. You watch the kid play in college, doesn't make sense to me at all. But we got him undrafted. Now, I like him a lot better. Don't get me wrong. I think Huff's going to surprise the hell out of you guys. Huff fits the mold of like a Shaq Lawson, that kind of elite, big, strong, dominating edge rusher in a 4-3 system. That when you have a guy like Quinnen, Rankins, John Franklin Myers, Foley on the middle, when you got guys like that on the end, they can eat, baby. And I'm telling you, people think Franklin Myers on the end might be, but don't sleep on Huff. Don't sleep on the combination of Shaq Lawson. So I don't know why I'm saying Shaq. Carl Lawson, and Bryce Huff. But we got Hamilcar Rashed Jr. as an undrafted guy. Rashed Jr. from Oregon State is a one-year wonder. But he was a hell of a one-year wonder in that 1 year. In 1 year, Hamilcar Rashed Jr. had 14 sacks and 22 TFLs. Yeah, 1 year, guys. 1 year. This dude had 14 sacks, 22 TFLs. Again, he didn't do anything after that. So he's totally a one-year wonder. But it'll be interesting to see. And that's another thing I want to point out. I talked to somebody about this. When I was on Weapons Hot. We spoke about this. You can't hate undrafted picks, guys. The undrafted guys, there's there's no guarantee they're not even going to make the team. Heck, if one of them makes the team, that's amazing. If one undrafted guy makes the team, that's great. We've gotten spoiled with like Robbie Anderson and now Bryce Huff and Javelin Guidry. Don't forget, Javelin Guidry was an undrafted guy. Man, Douglas is amazing, and Douglas did it last year. Douglas got Bryce Huff and Javelin Guidry as undrafted guys. I mentioned Rashed. Now, Rashed is on the smaller side, but as you guys know, I say it all the time, I don't get caught up in measurables. Remember, I mentioned it when I watch college guys, biggest thing. I don't look at what they measure at, because when you look at that, you go, oh, this guy can't work here, or this guy can't fit in this system. But last year, you guys remember Frankie Louvu. I liked Frankie Louvu a lot since he came in as an undrafted guy. I thought he was pretty damn good. And he primarily lined up with his hand in the dirt. You can't look at a guy, because he's 230-something, he can't play that position. So Rashed is on the smaller side, but who knows, man? He's got potential. The other guy I really like, I mentioned, Kenny Yabo. Kenny Yabo is the tight end for Ole Miss. And Ole Miss sounds familiar because that's where Elijah Moore went. And Kenny Yabo had the second most receiving yards, 524, next to Elijah Moore. So he's another good receiving option, which is important because other than Chris Herndon, we didn't have any. I love our blocking options. Don't get me wrong. Trayvon Wesco and Tyler Croft are exciting blocking options. Like those two guys, they can make a catch. Like send them out once or twice a game. They'll make a catch, but they're blockers. And a tight end, nowadays in today's NFL, they can get down and dirty at the line of scrimmage, is an underappreciated asset. Especially last year when our offensive line was dog dung, guys. Our offensive line was crap. So when you need better offensive line play, it's good to have tight ends that can block. And Wesco and Croft are that. But when it came to receiving tight ends, it was only Chris Herndon. And you guys remember I showed you the stat that Herndon, toward the end of the season, he came on like gangbusters. He had catch percentages of 78%. He had 100% twice. He played well, but he's still a question mark. Kenny Yabo puts a fire under his ass, and hell, Yabo could start, guys. Don't sleep on Yabo as a tight end option. I believe it was the Jets actually recently just announced that they had Yabo as a later round pick on their board. And you know what? They weren't the only ones. There were other teams that had Yabo rated as like a 5th round, 6th round, maybe 7th round guy. As an undrafted guy, that's some really good talent. And like Matthias says, we could use a pretty good tight end, especially a receiving option. So hell, Yabo could totally beat out Chris Herndon. If Chris Herndon doesn't bring it in camp, Yabo could beat him out. But I think Herndon is going to bring it because Herndon's in a contract year. Jenny's saying should have signed Tebow. Man, Tebow's making his way everywhere. Man, Tebow's making his rounds. It's crazy, man. That was funny. Shout out to Jenny. That was funny. Bring in Tebow. That was some good stuff. But at tight end, Herndon's in a contract year. So he's got everything to prove. He wants to make money. That's how these guys are. He wants to make that money. So he's in a contract year. I think he could show. Herndon could definitely show next year. But if Yabo shows as well, you can let Herndon go. I mean, you could tell Herndon, try out free agency, my man. See if you can find some greener pastures. So Yabo is a really good option. So those are my 2 favorite guys. We got a lot of offensive linemen. We actually brought in about 5 or so offensive linemen as undrafted guys. You guys know I've talked about offensive line is one of the few positions in the NFL that there's still a learning curve. That's why offensive linemen that are ready to go, plug and play, day one NFL ready offensive linemen, they go high. Why do you think we had to trade up to get a guy like Vera Tucker? Remember, I compared it to like going getting a guy like Quentin Nelson. Why do you think guys like Penei Sewell go high? Plug and play offensive linemen from day one. Guys that are ready to go, that is rare, that is needed. We had GMs in the past that didn't understand that. For some reason, that logic just freaking evaded their minds. Joe Douglas gets it. He got it with Mackay. He got it now with Vera Tucker. But that's not a normal trade in offensive linemen. Most offensive linemen out of the first round don't start initially. Because again, offensive lineman is one of the few positions where there's still a learning curve. And it's one of the few positions where if you rush somebody out when they're not ready, they develop bad habits. I don't know if you guys remember, this is going way, way back. When I used to watch James Carpenter back in Jet Camp in 2018, it might have been 2017. It was 2017 or 2018. I didn't like his form. I felt like he developed bad form. Same thing I've said with Alex Lewis. I really don't like his technique. I'm a very big guy with offensive linemen. I hate his technique. I feel like he's made it on strength and kind of just turned into a bull, and that's how he wins. But if you get him off kilter a little bit, it's over. So if you rush offensive linemen out, they develop bad habits. They develop bad traits. They lose their confidence. We've seen offensive linemen that were supposed to be great turn into crap. Guys like Jonah Williams, they took a little time to develop because that's a learning curve position. When you go from college level defenders to NFL defenders, man, there's a difference. That NFL edge rusher and that NFL nose guy is a hell of a lot better than the guys they were facing in college. And this brings me to Cameron Clark. I loved the Cameron Clark pick when we took him. I loved the Cameron Clark pick because if you guys remember, Joe likes to tell his guys what he likes. When Joe took Cameron Clark, he said, I'm drafting you for your nasty side. That's literally what he said to him on the phone. And man, if you watch Clark, he plays physical. Man, he puts people down. He's like a smaller Mekhi Becton. He really, really is. He plays with a nasty streak. He takes it personal. He likes to finish and put guys to the earth, and he's got good technique. But like I said before, offensive line is a position that takes to learn. I'm glad he wasn't rushed out, but I had speculated that I think he'd be a damn good option this year. I still think he is. Why didn't Joe Douglas get another offensive lineman? He might agree with me. I'm telling you guys, don't sleep on Cameron Clark. He had a year to pick up the pace, to get his, to learn the speed of the NFL, which is the biggest thing, adjusting to that speed. He might be ready to go now. He really, really might be ready to go. So with those undrafted offensive linemen, if they make the team as backup, that's awesome. That's awesome. Kudos to them. Round to them. because again, it's a position that you don't just plug into. It's rare. So if any of the undrafted guys make it on the team as a backup, that's a win, man. That's a win. That means there's potential there. That tells you that Joe Douglas sees the potential in those undrafted guys. Could be Tristan Hoge. Who knows? But we'll see. So, like always, I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for tuning in to the Take Flight Spit and Fire podcast. It's always a pleasure to be spitting that fire and talking to you guys, always about them Jets. Love it. Always fun. As you guys know, we're always here on Mondays. But as you guys remember when I had Jet Media on the other day, I have a special surprise for you guys. Tomorrow, I don't know if you're ready for this. Tomorrow, I am bringing on Matt O'Leary. Tomorrow, giving you guys a sneak peek first. I was going to tweet it out. You guys get the sneak peek. You get the reveal, baby. Tomorrow, I'm having a special episode, and Matt O'Leary will be on the episode. So I hope you guys check it out. I hope you guys tune in tomorrow. I'll be talking with Matt O'Leary about them Jets. Like always, again, I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for tuning in to the Take Flight Spit and Fire podcast. And I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your Monday evening.